Okay, so this is my thing. This is about structure. Quite often as songwriters, we have to write to a brief, or we want to, a part of our brain's going, I really want to write a song, and the other part of our brain's going, no, 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 I'm not going to comply. So having a process that you can go through to gear up your brain so that you can overcome any barriers that are stopping you from creating a song. It's really handy. And that is this logical creative think. I'm sure this isn't true, but I like to think that the left side of my page represents the logical and the right side of my page represents the creative. And I'll go through and I'll start mapping out theme. So I might start with theme. If I go, I want to write a love song, or I want to write something that is angsty or aggressive or hopeful, and I'll come up with a theme, and that's the first hurdle to get through. And then I'll start to think, well, what could that theme look like? Then I'll drop down into a narrative, and I'll try and unpack those different narrative approaches to telling the theme that I want to tell. So I've got this big story, which is love, which is anguish, which is hope, which is frustration. And then I want to try and think about how best to tell that story, whether it's through characters, whether it's through sort of a monologue, or whether it's a preacher kind of character telling you how it is and putting the world to rights. So I try and unpick my narrative. And then I move in from narrative to characterization. And all the way through this process, there's a very boring, logical part of my brain going, and this would work really well in a bluesy feel. And I'm writing down all these details of my boringness. But every now and again, something will crop up, like, of my boringness. And I'll jot it down on the right-hand side of my page. So I've got this ever-growing lyric bank that every time a little bit of creativity seeps into my otherwise accountant, boring brain. I'm not an accountant, but it appears on the right-hand side of the page. And it's completely out of context. It's just words or short phrases that are snapshots of little flashes of idea that come up. So you move through to your characterization, and then you might start to think about those characters, and then start to think about what the debate might be. What am I trying to say here? What is my point that I'm trying to make? And how can I best illustrate that point in the way that you made your protagonist an unreliable narrator, or the way that you referenced Plato and took us to a place which was philosophical. So you start to think about that. Then, once you've got that stuff, you're starting to gear up towards the creative. And if I'm writing about a character, I'll start to ask myself questions about that character. So I do this quite a lot when I'm working with student groups, like kids in school, because it's very familiar to their creative writing process. But I'll get them to think about who that person is, how old are they, where are they from, where did they grow up, who's their best friend, what do they long for? And I gradually go through these questions, and inevitably, because you start to run out of questions, they become a little bit more left field, a bit more creative in the way that you're asking it. What makes them angry? What makes them sad? What is a hope for the future? What's their biggest regret? So as you go down this rabbit hole from the very logical, it starts to unpack to the questions themselves being more creative. And you have to really listen to yourself as you're going through that process, as you're responding, to pick out the poetic lines that naturally form from doing that. And then also really lower your bar for what's poetic, because quite often you'll be like, no, that's not very poetic. It is, you put everything in that is mildly poetic, and then you start to reverse engineer it as you start to structure the piece. I think that's everything about that structural approach. Oh, and also the other elements that you might put in there as well are, in the same way we looked at that blues track, you might look at what genre you're writing in, if harmony or all the descriptive stuff about this is a song that should sound like a childish melody, or it should be written in a pentatonic scale, or it should be a complex jazz piece with changing time signatures to express all of the structural stuff that you think of goes in there. Because at the end of that writing session, you go into producer session, which is you can refer back to those notes and go, oh, when I was writing this, I was kind of thinking it would be in 7/8 because I want it to feel disjointed, and I wanted it to have a kind of bluesy feel, whatever that is. So you get through that process and out comes lyrics. Oh, and the other thing is, how does the debate progress through verse, chorus, bridge, middle eight? Is your verse filled with naivety and you're professing your undying love to this person, this idea? Is your chorus the voice of reason going, hang on a minute, I'm not sure this is true? And then is your middle eight a sort of rebellion? So are you going to structure your song to unpack your narrative and your debate in a process as you go through it?
Are we aiming to write a whole song?
Oh, this isn't. Well, this is a challenge actually, because the next thing we're going to do is to try and do that. But the aim of that process is to take the Sunday morning, I can't be bothered to do anything blues, and give you something like just some kind of achievement. And it really is self-gratitude, I think, is the what this does, is it allows you to go, oh, I've done something, oh, I like that, or that works, I'm quite good at this. And it's reinforcing that idea that you can do and you can create. And then even if all you create is a very logical, pragmatic, I would like to write a song about these things, and lyrics don't happen on that session, it still is the foundation of a song, and it helps you to reinforce the reverse engineering side. So when you do stumble across inspiration and you create an entire song in 20 minutes whilst you speed write and go, oh, this is brilliant, you can then reverse engineer it and go, oh, I can see what my debate is, I can see what my theme is, I can understand why I've done that. I like the way that progresses into that section because it's a juxtaposition between these two different characters, and it allows you to then craft the harmony and the production side of stuff to underscore those elements. It just allows you to understand the craft of songwriting. And on both sides of the logical and the creative, the more you understand each part, the better you'll get at writing to a brief, responding to a situation, or understanding your own motivations and psychology.
First, or do you hear something and think, oh, this could be, and it'll give you inspiration, and you kind of work more? I think,
yeah. There's three different things that normally trigger songwriting. It's either an experience, I'll experience something in my life, and it will unlock a load of different narratives that were sort of kicking around my brain subconsciously for years, and suddenly it just appears that all I can do is write that particular song. And then after I've written those lyrics, I go back and go, oh, that's my theme, that's what I'm anchoring this around, and that's the narrative, and that's experience. It's the purest form of songwriting. You just do stuff and write about it. But there's only so many heartbreaks and misery that you can put the world through or put yourself through in order to get an album's worth of material. I think there should be an organisation set up of people that come and break your heart on a regular basis so you can have more songs to write. the pain and misery organisation. Yeah, and that's the purest form, the experience. The second is placing yourself in an imagined world where you can respond in an imagined way. And that's by creating the narrative and the theme and the subtext and the universe for your character and responding to that. And I guess the third way is almost pastiche. It's where a harmony or a song or something else inspires you to write something of a similar ilk. That regularly I'll be watching a film and a piece of music will come on and I'll go, I can't watch the end of this film, I need to go to the piano. And I'll go and sit and write. And it's probably a rip-off of a piece of music that was in that film earlier on, and I'm writing it going, oh, this is brilliant. And then I'll watch the film again and go, oh, I've stolen all of the chords. But yeah, it's those different, understanding the mechanisms behind what it is that you're doing, because there's always an inspiration, and whether that's life, art, or the universe, it's got structure. That's where I can, and it's that the thing what I said about metacognition. It's sharpening those processes so that your brain's expecting that when you start writing theme and narrative and characterization, it's going, oh, we're going to be creative soon. Let's switch gears to that. This is how we work. This is how we roll. And the more you do it, the better it gets. And one of the sessions I want to do in the future is about co-writing, which is very similar to this, because co-writing is like so challenging, because you're asking someone to tell you all of their emotional feelings and express themselves without putting too much of your own baggage onto it, valuing everything that they say, but then interpreting it into a formula that can be presented as a song. So having this process of being able to go, how's it going? What's happening at the moment for you? It's interesting, that's great. And in the back of your mind, you're going, theme, narrative, and they're going, oh, I split up with Dave. Oh, yeah, he's going out with some other girl at the moment. He's such an asshole. And you're going, cheating bastards, Dave, die, Dave. And you're going through in this conversation, which might be before you even get to the studio or you get to the writing session, where you're unpicking theme, narrative, characterization, and you get into that session and you're like, right, let's start playing with these ideas. And like, oh my God, this is strumming my pain with a finger, singing my life. It's a bit like that. I'm not going to put that in the video. But yeah, it's like that narrative of how you capture someone's life in music and understand and empathize with them in a really formulaic way. There you go. That was my thing.